At the recruits' welcome party, Kevin stood beside his mother, Erin, trying to stay calm, trying to belong. Greg and his friends noticed him immediately. At first, the comments sounded like jokes mocking Kevin for being too close to his mother, calling him spoiled, a baby who still needed protection. Their laughter grew louder, sharper, then the tone changed. The words aimed at Erin became crude, indecent, said just loudly enough to sting. Kevin kept his eyes forward, shoulders rigid, forcing himself to endure it so he wouldn't shame her. But anger doesn't disappear when it's swallowed. It builds when the insults went too far. Kevin snapped. He stepped forward, ready to fight, every instinct screaming to defend her. Erin stopped him with a single movement. Her hand closed around his arm steady. Unyielding, she pulled him to breathe. She told him that real revenge wasn't found in fists or rage, but in intelligence and timing. Greg and his friends exploded with laughter, convinced they had won. To them, Kevin was nothing more than a weak mama's boy hiding behind a woman. Erin didn't argue, she didn't explain. She slowly rolled up her sleeve and revealed the trident tattoo on her arm. The laughter died mid-breath, faces drained of color. The room fell into a stunned silence as the meaning hit them all at once. Erin wasn't just a mother. She was a Navy SEAL and they had no idea how badly they had misjudged her. But before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's understand how this story really began. The ballroom on base had been prepared to look welcoming without trying too hard. Polished floors reflected the overhead lights in dull halos. Flags stood rigid in the corners, their fabric heavy and still. The low murmur of families filled the room, voices measured, laughter restrained, everyone instinctively aware they were guests inside a system that did not belong to them. Kevin stood near the refreshment table with his mother, Erin. He wore civilian clothes, but nothing about him read as civilian. His spine stayed straight without effort. His shoulders were square, not tense, just set. His eyes moved in short, habitual sweeps door, wall, exits before settling somewhere neutral, as if he were consciously forcing himself not to scan. Across the room, Greg held court, 26, broad smile, loud posture, the kind of confidence that leaked outward, demanding acknowledgement. He laughed with two other candidates, head tipped back, one hand slicing the air as he talked. Then his gaze landed on Kevin. It lingered. Greg's mouth curved, not into a smile but into something sharper. He nudged one of his friends, said something low. They turned together, assessing. Greg's eyes flicked to Erin, then back to Kevin, like he just identified a weak seam in armor. "Bro," Greg called out, voice deliberately amplifying. Conversations nearby thinned. "You bring your mom to hold your hand too? Or is she here to ask the instructors for a bedtime story?" A few laughs followed, short, brittle, the kind people offered to align themselves with the loudest voice in the room. Kevin's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped once near his temple. He didn't look up. He shifted his weight half an inch, steadying himself. Breath pulled deep into his chest and released through his nose in a controlled exhale. Erin watched Greg without reacting. Her face didn't harden. It didn't soften either. Her eyes tracked him the way a professional tracked a problem: distance, angle, intent, emotion held in reserve. Greg stepped closer, feeding off the attention. He moved in a lazy arc, circling Kevin as if it were a game. "This is what's wrong with candidates now," he continued. "Mommy's bow, she probably still cuts the crust off your sandwiches." Kevin's fingers curled against his palm. The knuckles blanched, then eased as he forced them open again. His gaze stayed down, fixed on a neutral point on the floor, as if looking up might cost him something he couldn't afford to lose. Greg wasn't finished. His eyes dropped to Erin's forearm, then rose slowly back to her face. The grin sharpened, turning deliberate. "And you, what's your deal?" he said. "You proud he's gonna get trained up by real men?" One of Greg's friends snorted. Another muttered something under his breath low. "Crew." Erin's hand paused mid-motion as she set her cup down. Not a flinch, just a fractional delay, like a system recalculating. Kevin's breathing changed. Shorter now, controlled. But tight. He swallowed once. Greg leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to feel intimate, invasive. "Dat you like the attention," he said. "Dat you." Kevin moved, not a wild lunge, not chaos. It was a clean shift forward, shoulders rolling, hands rising with instinctive precision. Anger broke containment, not loud, not sloppy, just enough to act. Erin caught him by the arm. Her grip closed fast and firm, fingers locking just above his elbow, not maternal softness, a clamp. Kevin's momentum stopped immediately, like hitting a hard limit. His head snapped toward her, eyes burning, humiliation and fury colliding behind them. Erin leaned in, her voice low enough that only he could hear it. "Not with your fists," she said. "Calm, absolute. You want justice? You do it the smart way." Greg laughed, louder now, feeding on the moment. "Oh, look at that, he's scared. Mommy says no fighting." The room felt tighter. The background music thinned under the weight of attention turning their way. Erin didn't argue, she didn't explain. She rolled her sleeve up a few inches. Black ink surfaced against her skin-clean lines, unmistakable. The seal trident sat there without ornament, without apology. The laughter stopped, Greg's face drained as if someone had cut power. His friends froze, eyes locked on the insignia, recognition hitting in real time. No one spoke, even the air seemed to pause. Erin met Greg's stare. Her expression was flat, controlled, almost cold. Not threatening, certain. Greg swallowed. His throat worked once, hard, because now he understood. He hadn't been mocking a recruit's mother. He had been running his mouth at a seal, and Erin saw the exact second he decided this wasn't over. Outside the ballroom, the night air carried the sharp scent of salt and damp concrete from the bay. The sound of the reception dulled as the doors closed behind them, leaving only the distant slap of halyards against masts and the hum of bass lighting. Kevin stood beneath a sodium lamp, its light bleaching his face and throwing hard shadows along his jaw. His hands hung at his sides, fingers flexing and releasing as if they were still waiting for a signal that never came. The tendons along his forearm stood out, pale under the skin. His breathing came measured now, but not calm. Each inhale drawn deliberately through the nose, held a fraction too long, then released. His body hadn't accepted the stand down yet. Erin stopped a few feet away, giving him space, without stepping back. Her posture was neutral, balanced, the way it had been on steel decks and dirt compounds alike. When she spoke, her voice carried no heat. "You gave him what he wanted for half a second," she said. "Emotion, don't do it again." Kevin didn't answer right away. His gaze stayed fixed on her upper arm, on the black lines of the trident partially visible, or her sleeve had fallen back. His brow tightened, a faint vertical crease forming between his eyes. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked. The question came out clipped, not accusing, but edged with something unsettled. Erin didn't blink. The question landed and passed without visible impact. "Because you didn't need my story to chase yours," she said. Kevin let out a short exhale, sharper than the others. His jaw worked once, teeth pressing together. "He said things to you." Erin's eyes shifted not to Kevin, but back toward the ballroom windows. Through the glass, Greg and his friends clustered together, their heads close, voices low. Their laughter had resumed, but it sounded wrong now, too loud, pushed, like a forced exhalation after panic. Erin watched in the way she'd once watched doorways, noting posture, spacing, the way Greg's shoulders sat higher than before. "Men like that don't stop because you're kind," Erin said quietly. "They stop when there's consequence." The door behind them opened. Footsteps approached and hurried, deliberate. A broad-shouldered man in khaki stepped out, cover tucked under his arm. Senior Chief, the posture gave it away immediately. Spine straight without stiffness, weight centered, movements economical. His eyes flicked once to Erin's arm, then lifted to her face. Something passed between them in that half-second. Recognition, measure, and controlled. He didn't say her name. He didn't slow. He gave a single nod, precise, respectful, cautious, and continued on his path, disappearing back inside as if nothing had happened. Kevin noticed, his head turned slightly, eyes tracking the man's retreat. "You know him?" Erin's mouth barely moved when she answered. "He knows what that tattoo means." From inside the ballroom, Greg's laughter spiked again, too sudden, too loud, pitched to reclaim attention. It echoed faintly through the doors, hollow and strained. Erin didn't look back immediately, but Kevin saw it, the slight narrowing of her eyes, the subtle shift of her weight, attention refocusing. Not anger, assessment. Then Erin's phone vibrated in her hand. The sound was small, but it cut cleanly through the quiet. Erin lowered her gaze to the screen. One message, a known number. "You shouldn't have shown that." Her thumb hovered above the glass, motionless. No reply, no visible reaction, just stillness, deliberate and controlled. Kevin leaned closer, eyes scanning the screen. The color drained from his face as the implication landed. His stomach tightened, heat cooling low and heavy. The welcome party was over. And someone somewhere had already decided this was going to get personal. Morning arrived with clean Coronado light and the rhythmic echo of cadence drifting across the base, voices synchronized somewhere beyond the low buildings. The sun cut sharp lines across concrete and palm fronds, turning everything crisp and deceptively calm. Kevin moved with the other candidates toward processing, his pace measured, posture locked in. Erin walked beside him, matching his stride without effort, stopping only where civilians were no longer permitted. The installation looked orderly, almost serene. Manicured grass, painted curbs, flags hanging slack in the still air. It was a familiar illusion. Erin knew what lived beneath it: ambition grinding against fear, resentment carried quietly, damage done without witnesses. Institutions didn't erase human behavior, they just taught people how to hide it better. Kevin's eyes kept drifting to Erin's phone in her hand. He didn't realize he was doing it until she noticed the rhythm. "An unknown number could be anyone," he said, voice low, controlled. Erin didn't look at him. Her expression remained flat, unreadable. "Not anyone," she replied. "Someone who felt exposed." They stopped near a bulletin board crowded with laminated notices. Family readiness resources, equal opportunity contact numbers. Reporting procedures spelled out in precise language. Erin read them slowly, line by line, the way she used to read terrain maps cataloging routes, dead ends, pressure points. Kevin shifted his weight, boots grinding softly against the concrete. "What are we doing?" he asked. His voice dropped further, almost swallowed by the ambient noise. Erin turned to him then. "We document," she said. "We don't threaten, we don't swing, we build a chain of facts so strong nobody can buddy it away." Kevin swallowed. His Adam's apple rose and fell. "He's a candidate," he said. "What can he even do?" Erin's gaze moved past him to the training building. Candidates flowed toward the doors in small clusters, some talking too loudly, others silent, eyes forward. "A candidate can poison a team before it forms," she said. "He can spread lies, he can push someone into a bad decision. And if he thinks rules don't apply to him, he'll test that." Kevin's phone vibrated in his pocket. The sensation startled him more than it should have. He pulled it out, thumb hovering for a beat before unlocking the screen. A class group chat. Someone had posted a photo from the night before. Erin. Mid-motion, sleeve rolled, the trident visible. Caption: "Recruit's mom wants attention." Kevin felt his throat constrict, breath catching halfway in. His eyes lifted instinctively, scanning faces. 50 yards away, Greg leaned against a railing, sunlight cutting across his grin. He looked relaxed, satisfied. Erin didn't react. No tightening of her jaw, no flare of emotion. She simply extended her hand. Kevin placed the phone into it. Erin glanced at the screen once, long enough. Then she nodded. "Code." Kevin blinked, thrown off balance. "Code." Her eyes never left Greg. "He just gave us evidence." Greg raised his hand in a small wave, almost friendly, mocking, confident again. As if he decided the tattoo wasn't enough to protect her after all. His lips moved. Erin didn't catch it. Kevin did. "It's not over." The words landed heavy, sinking into his chest. He turned toward the building, muscles coiling as he stepped forward. "Candidate Kevin Mercer." The voice cut through the morning air, sharp and absolute. "Step aside." Now, Kevin's feet stopped, his shoulders squared reflexively, pulse surging beneath disciplined control. Erin's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened around the phone just enough to crease the edge of the case. The first official pressure had arrived, and it was aimed straight at her son. Kevin stood at parade rest in a cramped administrative office, shoulders squared, chin level, eyes fixed on a point just above the chief's left shoulder. The room was windowless, lit by buzzing fluorescence that flattened color and cast hard shadows under cheekbones. The air carried the stale bitterness of burnt coffee and aging paper forms handled too many times, decisions made without witnesses. The chief stood in front of him, hands loosely clasped behind his back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lean forward. He didn't have to. Authority lived in the stillness of his posture, in the way he took up space without effort. You've been reported for aggressive conduct and threatening language toward another candidate, the chief said evenly. You want to explain that? Kevin felt his pulse strike hard against his throat, a steady percussion he worked to contain. His fingers twitched once, then stilled. His boots didn't move. No threats, chief, he said. His voice held, controlled but tight at the edges. He was harassing my mother. I disengaged and walked away. At the desk to the side, a petty officer kept writing. The pen moved in short, efficient strokes, never pausing, never looking up. The scratch of it against paper filled the silence like static. The chief's eyes narrowed a fraction, not suspicion, not judgment, assessment. Your mother is on base today. Yes, chief. The chief held his gaze for a beat longer, then shifted his weight slightly. Nothing else betrayed what he was thinking. Outside the office, Erin stood in the corridor with her hands folded loosely at her waist. Her breathing stayed slow, measured. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Every few seconds, a candidate passed by, boots striking the deck in rhythm, eyes locked forward. None of them turned their heads, but several glances flicked sideways anyway, quick, involuntary, like muscle memory betraying curiosity. Footsteps approached from the far end of the hallway. The same senior chief from the night before came into view, cover tucked under his arm, movement economical. He slowed just enough to speak without drawing attention. Ma'am, he said quietly. Erin lifted her eyes to meet his. Senior chief, his jaw tightened, a small movement near the hinge as he chose his words. You should know Greg's not acting alone. He's got protection in the pipeline. Erin didn't ask how he knew. She didn't shift her stance. Bases ran on informal channels as much as formal ones. Who? She asked. The senior chief hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the closed office door, then back to her. Someone with pull, he said. Someone who can make paperwork disappear. Erin nodded once, slow and deliberate. The office door opened. Kevin stepped out. His face was composed, but his eyes told a different story, something bruised, contained, forced into silence. He stopped as the chief followed him into the hallway. Candidate, the chief said, pointing down the corridor. You're being watched now. One more incident, and you're done. Kevin acknowledged with a sharp nod and moved past Erin without speaking, jaw locked, breath shallow. He took 3 steps before slowing, then leaned in just enough that his words wouldn't carry. They already have a story ready, Mom, he murmured. Erin didn't answer immediately. Her gaze slid down the corridor. Greg stood there, leaning casually against the wall, arms loose, posture relaxed. He looked like he belonged, like the building had been designed around him. When their eyes met, he smiled, not why, certain. In that moment, Erin understood. This wasn't just harassment, it wasn't ego or immaturity. This was someone attempting to engineer a failure, leveraging procedure, perception, and protection, turning the system itself into a weapon. That night, Erin sat in her car just outside base housing, engine off, dashboard dark. The glow from her laptop washed pale light across her face, highlighting the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. Her phone rested in her other hand, screen unlocked, notifications muted. The world beyond the windshield was quiet, rows of identical homes, a few porch lights left on. The distant hum of the Pacific carried on cool air. Inside one of those houses, Kevin lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, counting breaths before dawn. Accountability. Erin didn't check on him. She knew better than to break fragile routines. She didn't cry. Her eyes stayed dry, focused. She didn't spiral. There was no wasted motion, no pacing. She built a timeline, screenshots, saved with original file names intact. Names, copied exactly as displayed, no edits, no shorthand, timestamps, preserved down to the second. Her fingers moved steadily, precise. Each capture was logged, cataloged. She annotated nothing yet. Facts came first, interpretation came later. The senior chief's words replayed in her head, uninvited but persistent. Paperwork disappear. Erin reopened the candidates group chat. Kevin had given her view-only access from his phone for exactly 1 hour before locking it back down. A narrow window, a calculated risk. The interface refreshed. What appeared on the screen wasn't immaturity, it was pattern. Photos from the welcome event filled the thread. Women photographed without consent, frames cropped tight, zoomed to isolate bodies, faces circled, arrows added. Captions layered with implication. Below them, comments stacked in a tone that made Erin's jaw set without tightening. Predatory, confident, and afraid of consequence. Someone reposted the image of Erin from the night before, sleeve rolled, trident visible. The caption had changed. Stolen valor, prove it. Erin's mouth went still. A muscle jumped once beneath her left eye, then settled. She scrolled. Then Greg posted, "Watch." She tried to report. "If she does, we bury her kid." The area in the car felt thinner. Erin stared at the sentence until the font lost meaning, until the words resolved into intent, threat, retaliation, clear enough to stand on its own. She didn't rush. She forwarded the full thread raw exports, untouched, to an email address she hadn't used in years. A name Kevin didn't know. Someone anchored in Erin's past, in a world where evidence mattered and silence killed cases. Subject line: need NCIS consult. Sexual harassment evidence, candidate pipeline. Her finger hovered for half a second before sending. Then she pressed. The reply came back within minutes. "Erin, are you on Coronado? Do not confront. Preserve chain of custody. I'm routing this to the right field office." Erin's shoulders eased a fraction, not relief alignment. Her hands paused above the keyboard. Another email arrived. A mail address, one she recognized too well. Not a colleague, not a friend, a warning. "Stay in your lane. Don't create problems for candidates." Erin leaned back slowly, the seat creaking under her weight. The laptop remained open on her thighs, the chat frozen mid-tray. Her reflection stared back faintly from the windshield, eyes steady, unreadable. Now she understood. The protection the senior chief had mentioned wasn't rumor or social shielding. It wasn't favoritism whispered in hallways. It wore authority. And someone with access to official channels had just told the retired SEAL to stay quiet. Erin closed the laptop carefully, as if the evidence inside were volatile. She powered down her phone last, then sat in the dark, hands resting loosely on the steering wheel, breathing controlled. They had made their move. Now the rules apply. The pressure on Kevin did not arrive with orders or counseling chits. It bled into the margins of his days, into the spaces where structure was supposed to protect him. At the grinder, voices dropped when he approached. A half smile from a classmate died mid-formation, eyes sliding past him as if he were no longer part of the same element. During evolutions, cadre corrections lingered a fraction longer on him, a hand hovering near the clipboard, a pen scratching notes that never seemed to apply to anyone else. By the end of the week, Kevin's jaw stayed locked even in sleep, molars grinding, breath shallow, as if his body had decided rest was no longer authorized. Erin watched it without intervening, not because she didn't care but because interference would only tighten the noose. She tracked changes the way she used to track terrain, landmarks, deviations, patterns, dates, names, locations. She logged the rumor near the grinder verbatim, including who said it and who heard it. Unstable, whispered like a diagnosis, without a chart. She noted the instructor who stopped offering corrective guidance and instead defaulted to silence, arms crossed, eyes flat. Isolation was not accidental, it was a tool. She took that same discipline into the administrative spaces. The Equal Opportunity office smelled of recycled air and burnt coffee. Erin sat upright in the chair, spine aligned, hands folded loosely in her lap. When she spoke, her voice never wavered. She presented facts the way she had once presented briefs, chronological, sourced, stripped of adjectives. She did not say harassment. She said documented, indecent communications. She did not say threats. She said statements implying retaliatory harm to a candidate. When she requested preservation of CCTV footage from the welcome event venue, she used language that carried weight in courtrooms and command reviews alike. Retain all digital recordings, prevent routine deletion, anticipated inquiry pending. The representative nodded, eye sharpening, fingers pausing over the keyboard. The call came the next afternoon while Erin was stopped at a light just outside the base perimeter. The number was blocked. She answered anyway. The voice on the other end was older than Greg's, smoother, practiced. No wasted words, you're causing unnecessary turbulence. Erin kept her gaze forward. Her reflection in the windshield showed nothing, no frown, no flinch. She waited. Your son is in a selection pipeline, the voice continued, almost conversational. Attrition is high. Accidents happen. Don't make it worse for him. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel until the leather creaked softly. She felt the old instinct rise, the one that measured distance, assessed exits. She exhaled through her nose before speaking. Identify yourself. A pause followed. Not hesitation. Calculation. You know how this works. The line went dead. For several seconds, Erin didn't move. The light turned green. Cars behind her honking once, then flowing around her. Someone in uniform had just threatened a candidate like a street enforcer, using rank instead of a badge. She pulled into a small parking lot near an administrative building and shut off the engine. Her hands rested on the wheel, knuckles pale, pulse steadying under control she had earned the hard way. She dialed a JAG duty number from memory. When the legal clerk answered, Erin's tone was flat, professional. I need guidance on a harassment complaint involving candidates and potential retaliatory reporting. I have evidence of indecent communications and intimidation. There was a brief intake of breath on the other end. Paper shuffled. Ma'am, the clerk said, the casual edge gone. I'm going to ask you to come in. Erin ended the call and glanced at the rearview mirror. A vehicle sat behind her, engine idling. It had been there too long to be coincidence. The driver's face was partially shadowed by the roofline, but when Erin's eyes met his in the mirror, he didn't look away. She shifted into gear, calm settling over her like body armor. The net was tightening on everyone. Erin walked into the legal office carrying the folder at her side. Arm relaxed, grip light, as if it held nothing more consequential than routine paperwork. The manila edges were clean, unbent, inside. Every page was aligned, clipped, indexed. Screenshots printed in grayscale to preserve metadata clarity. Hash values handwritten in the margin. Cross-checked twice. A timeline reduced to facts, so orderly they felt less like accusations and more like physics cause, effect, inevitability. The JAG lieutenant who met her rose from behind his desk without ceremony. Early 40s, regulation haircut, eyes that missed nothing. He didn't offer a handshake. Erin didn't expect one. They sat across from each other, the desk between them bare except for a legal pad and a pen placed parallel to its spine. You're alleging retaliation connected to an equal opportunity complaint, he said, voice even, calibrated. I'm stating observable events, Erin replied. Her hands rested flat on her thighs, fingers still. And I'm requesting protection for a candidate from reprisal during a selection pipeline. The lieutenant opened the folder, paper shifted softly. His eyes moved line by line, the only motion in the room. When he reached the message thread, his jaw flexed once, an involuntary contraction at the line about burying her kid. He exhaled through his nose, slow, controlled. This constitutes indecent communication and implied threat, he said. If substantiated, it exceeds administrative handling. We may loop NCIS. Erin nodded once. A small movement, contained. It should be them. The lieutenant continued reviewing, pen hovering but not yet writing. When he finally looked up, it was not to ask another question. Candidate Greg Harlow's emergency contact is listed as Master Chief Harlow. Erin had already risen halfway from the chair. She stopped. Master Chief. The word came out level, but her breath stalled just after it. The lieutenant didn't meet her eyes this time. Command Master Chief, assigned to an administrative unit that supports this installation. The room seemed to contract. Not audibly, not visibly, but Erin felt the alignment snap into place. The senior chief's warning replayed with new clarity. Paperwork that vanished. A candidate who moved through boundaries without friction. Authority that didn't need to announce itself because it was already embedded. Her expression didn't change. Years of training kept it locked down. But inside, something honed itself to a finer edge. Greg hadn't just learned entitlement. He'd grown up adjacent to power, absorbing its blind spots, understanding where leverage lived and how to lean on it until systems bent. She thanked the lieutenant, voice formal, and exited the building. Sunlight hit her eyes as she stepped into the parking lot. Heat shimmered off the asphalt. Halfway across, she saw him. Greg stood near a parked car, one shoulder resting casually against the door. Arms loose, posture open. He wasn't supposed to be there. His gaze fixed immediately on the folder at her side, tracking it like a weapon. He pushed off the car and approached with a smile tuned for public consumption, friendly, harmless, just another candidate killing time. His eyes didn't match it. "You really want to do this?" he said quietly as he drew alongside her. His tone was smooth, almost kind. "You know who my dad is?" Erin stopped and turned to face him. Her stance was neutral, balanced. "I know who you are." For a fraction of a second, his smile faltered, the skin around his eyes tightening. Then it returned, thinner, sharper. "Then you know how this ends." "I do." He stepped closer, invading her space just enough to test the boundary. His voice dropped. "Your son won't make it past phase 1. I'll make sure the cadre sees what I want them to see." Erin didn't flinch, no widening eyes, no intake of breath. Only a slight tilt of her head, as if adjusting to background noise. "You just threatened a candidate's training outcome," she said calmly. "On a federal installation, while I'm in active contact with legal counsel." Greg blinked once, a flicker fear or calculation, then it vanished. He leaned back, spreading his hands, grin sliding back into place. "Prove it." Erin turned and walked away. Her pace never changed. She didn't look back. She didn't need proof yet. She needed momentum. Behind her, Greg's composure cracked. He reached for his phone, fingers moving fast, typing with the urgency of someone who just realized the water was rising and the exits were already closing. Kevin came home well after lights out, moving through the doorway with the economy of someone whose body had been pushed past its cooperative limits. Salt clung to the edge of his hairline, dried white against his skin, a rough crescent that hadn't fully rinsed away. His shoulders sagged only once the door closed behind him. When he reached for a glass, his fingers trembled, just enough to make the water slosh against the rim. Erin watched from the kitchen table without moving. Her hands were folded, knuckles pale where her thumbs pressed together. The mother in her track, every deviation his slowed gait, the tightness at the corner of his mouth. The operator in her cataloged it without panic, fatigue, stress load. Psychological pressure layered on physical depletion. Panic was nose, planning was signal. Kevin leaned against the counter and finally spoke, eyes fixed on nothing. "They're saying I'm unstable." Erin lifted her gaze. Her expression didn't change, but her breathing paused for a fraction of a second before resuming. "Who's they?" Kevin hesitated. His jaw worked once, then again, like he was deciding how much truth he was allowed to say out loud. That hesitation told her more than the answer ever could. "People who were fine yesterday." She nodded once. Minimal movement. "Isolation is a tool." The words landed heavier than she intended. Kevin's shoulders tightened. When he spoke again, his voice frayed at the edge, cracking despite his effort to hold it level. "Why is this happening?" "Because of you." Erin didn't answer. She stood, crossed the room, and knelt by a low drawer she rarely opened. The wood creaked softly. From inside, she removed a thin envelope, manila gone soft with age, its edges worn smooth as if they'd been rubbed by years of restraint. The seal was intact. Kevin turned fully now. "What is that?" She placed it on the table between them. The sound was dull, final. "Something I promised myself I wouldn't use." "Use for what?" His throat tightened visibly as he asked. Her eyes didn't soften, they steadied. "To protect you." Kevin sat and opened the envelope slowly, carefully, like it might detonate if handled wrong. Inside was a photocopied after-action summary. Most of it was blacked out unit designators, dates, locations, but enough lines remained to sketch the silhouette of a cover-up. In the margin, handwritten initials, a rank, Master Chief Harlow. Not Greg, his father. Kevin's breath caught. He looked up, disbelief flickering across his face. "Dad's name isn't on this." Erin's voice stayed low, controlled. "Your father never knew. I didn't want you growing up inside my war." Kevin stared back down, hands shaking now for a different reason. "So Greg's dad has influence," Erin said, cutting in gently but without hesitation. "And he has history. And if he's using that influence to shield his son's misconduct, he's betting no one will force daylight onto it." Kevin swallowed hard, eyes bright but refusing to spill. He looked at the envelope like it was something radioactive. "If you release this, what happens?" Erin inhaled through her nose, slow and deliberate. Truth has a blast radius, and if you don't, she looked at him then, really looked, 23 years old. Salt-stained, exhausted, still trying to earn his place with discipline and effort now being ground down by someone else's rot. Her phone vibrated on the table. Once, she glanced at it, then turned it so Kevin could see. A photo, Kevin during training, blurred, zoomed, taken without consent. Beneath it, a single line of text, "Next time, we make him quit." Aaron set the phone face down with controlled precision, no slam, no shake. Just placement. In that moment, Kevin understood. His mother wasn't deciding whether to fight. She was deciding how clean the kill shot would be. The following week advanced with the precision of a controlled burn, slow at the edges, devastating at the center. Nothing exploded, nothing announced itself. The heat simply crept closer until escape routes vanished. Insys never arrived with sirens or spectacle. Aaron met an agent in a quiet cafe off base, the kind that served burnt coffee and didn't ask questions. She slid a plain folder across the table, her movements economical. Inside were original digital files, untouched, hashes verify, metadata intact. A written statement, signed, dated, language stripped of emotion and padded only with facts. Chain of custody documented in ink and memory. The agent didn't thank her. He didn't need to. His eyes scanned the contents once, jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. He closed the folder and nodded. That was it. The moment passed without ceremony, which made it heavier than any confrontation. Back on base, the atmosphere shifted. Greg's group chat went silent overnight. Not slowly, instantly, like oxygen had been cut from a room. Candidates stopped laughing near him, stopped standing close, stopped making eye contact. It wasn't morality that drove the distance, it was instinct. Proximity to consequences carried risk, and everyone in the pipeline could smell it now. Greg felt it, and like predators who sensed the tide turning, he panicked. He cornered Kevin in a hallway near admin, a narrow stretch of beige walls and scuffed floors where footsteps echoed too clearly. No cadre in sight. Greg stepped in close, crowding space, the confidence he once wore replaced by something sharp and desperate. "This is your mom," Greg hissed, breath hot with bitterness. "She thinks she's scary because she played soldier." Kevin's fists tightened at his sides, knuckles whitening. He didn't raise them. His chest expanded, then still dare in, hold, air out. A rhythm burned into muscle memory, taught without lectures, learned without knowing it had a source. He leaned forward just enough to be her voice even. "You're done." Greg barked a short, humorless laugh. "My dad." A door opened behind them, footsteps, measured, heavy with intent. Two NCIS agents stepped into the hallway. Badges visible, not flashed, authority worn, not wielded. One of them spoke, his voice flat in the way that ended negotiations before they began. "Candidate Gregory Harlow." Greg's face shifted, anger first, then confusion, then a flicker of something raw and unpracticed. Fear. "What is this?" The agent raised a printed screenshot, held at chest height like evidence already judged. "We're investigating allegations of harassment, indecent communications, and retaliatory conduct. You're coming with us." Greg's eyes snapped to Kevin, searching for an anchor, a villain, someone to blame for gravity itself. Kevin said nothing. His jaw was locked, eyes steady, he watched. From the far end of the hallway, boots struck faster. A presence arrived before the voice did. Master Chief Harlow moved with the certainty of rank and habit, shoulders square, authority radiating in a way that had bent rooms before. "This is a misunderstanding," he said sharply, words practiced. One agent didn't turn, didn't blink. "Master Chief, you're welcome to contact counsel. You're not interrupting this process." The hallway seemed to compress, walls closing in, air thickening with unspoken history. Master Chief Harlow's gaze tracked and landed on Erin. She stood near a doorway, unobtrusive, hands empty, posture relaxed in a way that came only from certainty. When his eyes narrowed in recognition, the muscle along his jaw jumped. "You," he said, voice low. Erin met his stare without lifting her chin. "Me?" For a heartbeat, it looked like he might try pressure, rank, the old gravitational pull of uniform and authority. Then Erin spoke, one sentence, quiet and surgical. "If you interfere, I open the file." He froze. Because he knew exactly which file. As NCIS guided Greg away, his composure finally broke. He twisted back, eyes wide, voice cracking for the first time. "You can't do this to me." The hallway swallowed the words. Kevin exhaled slowly, tension bleeding from his shoulders in increments. But he didn't relax, because he understood now the real battle wasn't finished. The institution still had to decide whether standards applied to everyone, or only to those without power. The formal fallout unfolded without spectacle. No raised voices, no podium statements, no cathartic confessions. It moved the way military justice always did, through forms rooted upward, sworn statements taken in windowless rooms, interviews logged and time-stamped, and a chain of command forced to look straight at facts it had previously stepped around. Greg was removed from the pipeline pending adjudication. Not escorted in disgrace, not announced to the formation, just gone. His name vanished from rosters, his access was cut. The group chat became an evidence archive, every message preserved with metadata and verifying authorship. The venue's CCTV footage aligned cleanly with Aaron's timeline, angles overlapping, until intent could no longer hide behind coincidence. Witnesses, quiet for weeks, began to speak once they understood the system might finally protect them if they stopped protecting the wrong person. Master Chief Harlow was quietly relieved, pending investigation into undue influence and interference. No public rebuke, no ceremony. His authority simply paused, frozen by process. Doors that had been sealed for years opened not out of compassion, but because the facts left no safe place to stand without being exposed. Kevin kept training, not because the pressure eased. It didn't. Muscles still burned, sleep still came in fragments. The grinder still punished hesitation. But he refused to let someone else's corruption define his trajectory. Each evolution stripped something unnecessary from him: anger, doubt, the need to prove anything to anyone but the standard itself. Weeks later, Erin stood at the edge of a pinning ceremony. No spotlight found her. No one announced her name. Families clustered together, hands folded too tightly, breath held as if nose alone could disrupt the moment. The air carried salt and anticipation in equal measure. Insignia waited on a small table, dull metal holding an entire life's worth of expectation. Kevin stepped forward when his name was called. His frame had hardened, his movements were precise, economical. The restless scanning of a candidate was gone. He searched the crowd with intent and stopped when he found her, Erin. When he reached her, there was no dramatic smile, no performative emotion. He took her hand and placed it over the trident being pinned, his trident linking to timelines that had once run parallel, never intersecting. Erin's fingers trembled once, her jaw tightened. Her breathing paused, then steadied. Only after the pin was set did her eyes gloss, and even then, no tear fell. Kevin leaned in, voice barely more than air. "You were right," Erin swallowed. "About what?" His eyes held hers, clear and unflinching. "Justice isn't strength, it's discipline." Something in Erin finally released. Her face softened, not pride in herself, not vindication, but pride in the man her son had chosen to become. A man who didn't swing when baited, who didn't shortcut the process, who refused to let ugliness rewrite him. Applause rolled across the formation, a controlled wave. Erin rolled her sleeve down, covering her old trident once more. Because the reckoning had never been about humiliation. It had been about restoring the standard quietly, completely, so her son could earn his place in a world that demanded everything and tolerated nothing that broke the code. If you value stories about integrity, discipline, and quiet justice, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more.